Welcome to our listening room with Elliot Grabill. And we are very happy to have Elliot with us. And his music is really cool with a capital K, is really good. And Elliot lives in Baltimore. And he also has had, as we all do, it's interesting to start sometimes with this question, which is tell me about your musical life, how you got started in music. Was it an organ grinder that went by your street every Thursday and you wanted to be like him, or was it something else? So, Elliot, how did you get into music?
Yeah, thank you for having me, and thank you all for coming. It's such an honor to participate and give this talk. I started writing music in high school. I wasn't very popular. I was moving around from place to place. So it was always hard to meet people. And so I just found or I guess God led me down this path where, to write music. This is something that this is a way I can express myself in a way without having to um, speak or, tell a dirty joke or, but something to really just express beauty and express my pain and emotion and sorrow and happiness in. And, um, if anyone listens, that's great. If not, it kind of can go into the bottom drawer somewhere to come out another day. Um, right now, I'm one of the only composer. Well, actually, I shouldn't say that, but I'm I am not a professional composer. Um, in that my job I earn income by teaching math at Bard High School, Baltimore City. I do something that has nothing to do with the grind of composition, um, and again, this is kind of like the voice of God speaking into my head, saying, this is your musical talent, but you need to do something that gives back to humanity as well. And so I've kind of dedicated my life to to teaching, but when when the day is over, I go and I do music, and I studied music. I play the saxophone. I currently have a space that is big enough to host concerts in, called the Hargrove. You can follow it on Instagram. I will put it in the chat, and we're open to anyone. Uh, Most of the stuff that we program is kind of this weird free jazz, free improvisational electronica stuff. I don't, I don't charge anything for people to use the space. I want to encourage anyone who wants to be able to perform an opportunity to do that. So, including anyone here. So, I don't charge for rent. It's very kind of underground, and yeah, and so I get a lot of kind of off the cuff, interesting kind of music, um, as well as some classical music, as well as some kind of singer songwriting kind of music as well. So um, I've had my current project is releasing an album in collaboration with the Civitas Solis Reed Quintet. I've written two reed quintets for them, and both of them are going to get performed by them on an album, and we're going to listen to a little bit of one of them later today. Um, yeah. So, and now I'm writing music for saxophone. So I'm kind of writing a lot of music for winds nowadays because they seem to be the people most interested in working with me. Anyway, so
Well, you said a lot of different things and actually had an outline for three things for at three different places. Tell me about your music life. Tell me about your Hargrove concert series, and tell me about your teaching career. So I guess we'll have nothing to talk about, and I'll have to be quiet. No, but actually, but I would like to just very briefly, not long. I would think most composers I know, with the definite exception of Frank Felice, uh, who played football and so forth, were usually nerdy, didn't fit in with a lot of people, not good social skills. And we were sensitive, which goes with being a musician. And so that's generally the profile. And it comes out in different ways. Sometimes we overcome that, but it's God likes to work with everybody, and He has everybody to do. And what we have in common besides that is we have Jesus, and He is a common denominator for our fractions in our life, whether it's fractions in our own mind, fractions in our family or a job, or fractions even in a church, or between churches, all those things. So we're going to, speaking of relate to religion, there is a group that you have written music for, and I'm which is the Amish. So before we hear your part of your Amish mass, I don't think the Amish have thought they wrote any masses, but Elliot has written a Amish mass. Mea culpa.
well, I'm working on an Amish. It's
So
not
we're,
done.
it's not, oh, I see. So it's a work in progress. So we're going to hear two parts of that. Tell us something. Why don't we actually play right now, the 23rd Psalm, and then we'll talk. Would that be okay?
Yes.
Okay. I was hoping you'd say no and we'd have an argument. No. All right. No. Okay. Let me get my glasses on. Share screen, share sound, share money. Oh, no, that isn't on there. Okay. Um, and now you see my screen. So now I have to click this and this should work. Hmm. Let's try that again. There we go.
Schon wieder, ich hab gar kein Not. Oh, lass mich allein. Lass mich allein. Lass mich allein. Und immer wann ich vom Tod an berichte ich mich nicht, weil du bei mir bist, weil du bei mir bist, weil du bei mir bist. Dein Stock und Stab brechen nicht. Du richtende Stab, ich war mein Freund. Du richt ein Dich, da mich mein Freunde warnen, mein Freunde. Du sollst mein Komitee, du sollst mein Komitee, mein Komitee, Lord, 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 Gutes und Barmherzigkeit, Gutes und bei mir sei, mein Leben lang. Und ich bleib in sein Haus, mein Schuf wieder, Schuf wieder. Und ich bleib in sein Haus, bei immer und immer und immer, immer.
Bravo.
Does anyone have anything to say or ask?
But what was the language?
Pennsylvania Dutch,
Okay.
which is not German. In my opinion, it's different language, different grammar. I don't think that a Hochdeutsch native European German would understand it. And a lot of weird sounds that you don't find in German or English, like all. Vowels that probably didn't really come out in the recording, but
Wow.
yeah.
And were there instruments or was it all voice?
It was one viola da gamba.
Are they a sect that is? I guess they do sing with instruments.
I don't know. A lot. It's very, lots of different Amish, kind of sects and different denominations within it. But the original Amish people that migrated from Germany would have used something like the viola da gamba or some sort of a stringed instrument that's, I guess, a little bit more antique than what we would think of as your traditional orchestral instrument.
Gotcha. Interesting. Thank you.
With the Amish music, I know a little bit about it. There's a book called the Ausbund, which is the hymnal for the Amish, particularly the traditional Amish that have buggies and don't wear buttons and so forth. And the Ausbund only has words, no music. And so what's happened is over hundreds of years now, the music has changed. And there is a kind of hymn called the long song, where if you were singing Praise God from whom all blessings flow, the leader would sing praise and then be holding God, and they'll sing kind of together in this odd thing. And when I used to teach world music, at the beginning session of my class, I would play a recording of that kind of Amish music. And I'd ask the students, where do you think it's from? And they'd pick the Middle East, Africa, Asia. They never pick United States around Pennsylvania. So it's very different. Although now they also do, from what I know, the Amish will do gospel music of like not rap or something, I guess. I don't know. So things have changed. But you have the spirit of the Amish music. Your goal was not to write Amish music. It was to write Elliot Grabill's view of what Amish music is.
What led
Yeah.
you to this?
So I've always liked the Amish people. I always felt that that they're more drawn to God in the way that they give up cars. They give up a lot of kind of the worldly things that most of us enjoy. But then they also don't believe in war. They don't, they really believe in forgiveness. They see forgiveness as kind of like this lifelong journey. So there's a lot of things I like about Amish people, and I think there's a lot of stuff that other people like. So there's a lot of kind of Christian romance novels that take place in Amish settings. Because there's some sort of there's this very kind of idealistic relationship that they have with God, I think. But anyway, I met two Amish people on the train. I was taking the train to Chicago. So you go through Pennsylvania, you go through Ohio. It's really easy to talk to people on the train, and a lot of Amish people take the train. Because I guess the train is like an old enough piece of technology, I guess, that it's okay for them to do. And so you have all these Amish people traveling to see their family and stuff. And I just talked to one of them, and we had a conversation about being Amish. I talked about God a little bit, and I ended up giving them my address. I told them, I told them I wanted to write some music in Pennsylvania Dutch, but I couldn't find any text, and so they said, oh, well, actually we have a dual language Bible. I have it with me. I should have taken it out, but so they ended up mailing me this beautiful black, like, dual language, half Pennsylvania Dutch, half English Bible, and I kind of had to like decipher it because there's not a lot of Pennsylvania Dutch literature out there, and a lot of I had to kind of look through the spellings. I found this person online named Doug Madenfort who kind of gives lessons on how to speak Pennsylvania Dutch online, and I asked him for like a private session where he taught me actually how to pronounce Pennsylvania Dutch, because it's not really German. And then and like I said, there are a lot of things that I like about the Amish people, and I don't even know if these two pieces I'm showing you are going to be in a mass. It could just be like individual pieces. I don't know. but it would be really nice. I would love to write kind of a mass that based on a themes of what Amish people believe in, using verses from scripture that kind of describe that kind of sum up their tenets, their philosophy, their spirituality.
Now, last June, we had heard at our conference one of these pieces, right?
Yeah, you heard Psalm 23.
So
These you just heard.
this is a different performance that we heard today.
Yes.
Can you tell us about Matthew 5:28?
Sure. So this is the next piece. And yeah, Matthew 5:28. It was a sermon that Jesus gave. How does it go? It's the part where he talks about turning the other cheek, and it talks about how if your neighbor asks you to go for 1 mile, you should go with them for 2 miles. What else does it say? I memorized it, but now I can't remember. It has a lot. It really encompasses what it means to be Amish, like the art of forgiveness, the art of loving your enemy, turning the other cheek, giving up this concept from the Old Testament of an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. So that's why I chose it. And it has a nice kind of musical rhythm to it, and sounds kind of harsh when set in Pennsylvania Dutch. But I kind of like it that way,
I'm just looking at emails from people that can't get on the program.
Oh yeah.
That's one. John Akins cannot get on. It sounds like he needs a newer version of it. Of course,
Yeah.
Greg
Well,
is on.
Bill, the email I got from you did not have a link on it.
So how did you get on?
I wrote to you and you sent the link.
Oh, so the first time it didn't have a link. That's not good.
It had the graffiti thing, which was kind of cool.
Say that again?
It had, the graffiti sort of panorama thing that you had. It's just
Oh, the picture. Yeah.
the link is below, but then there was no link below.
There's
Yeah.
no. Oh, I see.
Yeah, Elliot, while you're there, is there any connection between the Amish and Shakers? Because somehow I thought a little bit of the Simple Gifts tune, or are they completely no relation?
I don't think I don't know that much about it, but I don't think so.
Mm.
Like
they would be considered more cultish.
Yes.
I don't like throwing around words like "you're a cult" and things like
Yeah.
that. They did not, of course, believe in sex. Therefore they died off because of that. Their music was in the 1800s was unaccompanied. I wrote out once many years ago a transcription of some of Shaker's songs, and some of them are very remarkable. And Mother Ann, there was a woman named Ann, I forget her last name, might have been Smith, in the early 1700s, who was American, who started this offshoot of Christianity, and she passed away. But they would pray to her. So they were somewhat into communicating with the dead. They'd said Native Americans would talk to them. There was a song of theirs called "Me Come Very Long, Me Come Very Long into Mother's Pretty House and Mother's Sweet Communion." So they sing songs like that, and they're very interesting. And there are a few of them left in the country, and you could dispute whether they are Shakers anymore. But pardon me, I don't know about everything, but know something about Shakers. So
No, the only reason is I thought a little bit of the Shaker tune that Copeland used. For some reason, that popped into my head.
Yeah, I do agree that it is influenced by Shaker music and Copeland. I would say so. Yeah, for sure. I don't know if there's a direct link between the Shakers and Amish, but there's certainly a lot in common. So, and they're both American too. So, and it's definitely also influenced by shape note singing which I don't know if I'm sure I don't know if the Shakers did Shape Note Singer, but it was also from New England, so maybe they did, maybe they didn't. But that kind of bad singing, like that's very powerful to listen to, even if not all the singers are trained, but you can still hear the heart and you can still hear the connection to God. That was something that I was going for as well.
Oops.
Oh, one thing, can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay. Elliot, just one thing I wanted to drop in here. I really appreciated your use of silence in that last piece, you know, where there's sound and there's harmony, and then all of a sudden it just stops. And I think maybe you were emphasizing what they had just sung by the the split second of silence in there where they just stopped singing. I liked your use of that, by the way.
Thank you.
Well, now it looks like we're going to hear Matthew 5:38. How do you pronounce that?
Liwa Eier Feinde. The W is like a American W. It's not a German W. It's more like Liwa.
It's different in German. It's interesting. Here we go.
Der Held kehrt das Exor vor, fallen auf unensah, aber ich sag euch, der zerschnitze die Felder, geg ich in iwille Mensch, geg ich in iwille Mensch, man über euch hoch, da recht von geschluckt, zählet ihr da Wolke auf, Anne Himmel, und dich macht mit gefallen mal, geh mit ihm, was mal, geh mit ihm, was mal, dir hält kehrt, das ist so gut, du sollst deiner Liebe und dein Heil hassen, aber ich sag euch, dir segnet eure Freunde, segnet die, wo ein Verflucher. Segnet sie, wo euch Verflucher. Segnet
really a fascinating piece, Elliot. You, you mentioned shape note singing earlier, and you very much both pieces we've captured the spirit of American folk singing in there. But there were times in there where I thought Brahms' Requiem was going to break out. It was just a really nice mixture of different styles, but it wasn't jarring at all. It worked very well.
Thank you.
Walter, you haven't said anything yet.
I haven't been moved to say anything yet.
Okay, I'm sorry.
It's all right. Wanted to make sure everybody else had an opportunity to speak. So anyway, I'm sorry to tune in late, but I had to eat lunch sometime. So it's good to be with all of you.
Good to have you with us.
I might ask a question about forming a consort, which we've now heard two pieces of the consort that you yourself have put together. I guess you are one of the persons in the consort. It reminds me a little bit of what John Rutter did. And of course, we know that his consort, the Cambridge Singers, seems to have been greatly responsible for putting him on the map. So I applaud that aspect of your work very much, Elliot. Tell us a little bit about your consort, if you wouldn't mind.
Well, the consort did not last forever. I found some money to hire some friends, and I recorded it, and I put it online, and I called the group the Elliot Grabill Consort. But I mean, I would probably, I really want to, part of why I do this is because I want to connect with people and make friends and stuff like that. So perhaps the Elliot Grabill Consort will reunite at some point. But no, we're not like a 501c3 organization or anything like that.
You possibly should become one. I think it's a brilliant move on your part. Mm-hmm. And who knows, maybe you can find some more grant money. I think it'd be worth your effort because you've gotten some really good musicians at your back. And they're doing a great job in supporting you. You've got people who can negotiate incredible ranges and sound good in all parts of those ranges. And they're also gifted enough to navigate your Schubertian modulations. I just came from a rehearsal of Schubert's Mass in G major, and I'm always reminded what a master wanderer Schubert was. He went everywhere. Some people have perhaps equaled him over the years, but he really had the Wanderlust. The Wanderer fantasy and all the rest. And you take those motions from key to key, and you accomplish essentially what Schubert did in a matter of a few minutes. Pretty incredible where you go. And it's wonderful modulations that work. So kudos.
Thank you. And kudos to Schubert. He's a real influence and inspiration to me.
As he should be.
Well, now we're going to move on to a no-sing piece, a reed quintet, which title is Heroes and Villains. It's in 5 sections. And we're going to hear 3 of them. It would probably be good to not to stop for each one, although I have to switch around to do that too, which is, so the title of the reed quintet is called Heroes and Villains. And tell us something about it, Elliot.
Yeah, so I have the score right here. This is a 30-minute long work. We're not going to listen to the whole thing. We're just going to listen to 3 out of the 5 movements. And it's for reed quintet. Reed quintet is different from the woodwind quintet in that it is all reed instruments. So there's no flute and there's no French horn. Instead, it's oboe, saxophone, clarinet, bass clarinet, and bassoon. And so it has kind of a different sound to it than a woodwind quintet. You still have the colors, but you have kind of a continuity too, right? So the colors don't really clash. It is in that way more of a string quartet where you have this, the reed, the wooden reedy sound is what it has in common with all the instruments. But then there's also all of these colors that you get out of it. And woodwinds, wind instruments, they all have their interesting sound and little personality. So there's a lot of reed quintets that are kind of emerging. Like the most famous one is the Acropolis Reed Quintet. And there's a lot of really good reed quintet music being written nowadays, but it's a very new genre. It's not like the string quartet, but it could become like the string quartet if more repertoire is written for it. This piece, it does have a very distinctive sound, the reed quintet, though. And so I was thinking a little bit about the emotions that these instruments can get out as an ensemble, and I went with something that was kind of satirical, but also kind of dark. Because you've got all these colors, all these personalities. It's a very theatrical group of instruments, but then you also have these very you also have the ability to be very shrill and satirical and sinister about it. And but not all
the three S's we call that.
yeah, the 3
Shrill,
S's.
satirical, and sinister.
But the second, by the way, just FYI, I wrote a second one, which is none of those, right? So a reed quintet doesn't necessarily have to be shrill, right? Because you could have the bassoonist play contrabassoon, and then you could have the saxophonist play like baritone sax, and you could have all these very dark, like low, soothing colors as well. But this piece is all shrill. It's all the tunes are very catchy, but it is also very dark and satirical and sinister. And it's called Heroes and Villains, and it's kind of about humanity, and we're kind of in a people are now it's not like the good old days anymore. People are just kind of nasty to each other, and so I kind of let out my frustrations in this piece, but while also trying to make things kind of light and catchy in the same way, I guess. So we're going to listen to all 3 of them. Is that correct? In one thing?
I think.
Yeah. So we're going to listen to the 3rd, 5th, 4th, and 5th movement. Jeering, one of them is called Jeering Song, right? This is like, I stole this from Kabalevsky children's piano piece. And then the second song is called Patty Cake, and it kind of represents the promises that politicians and also people higher up kind of have made to us that have not been delivered. And elegy, I think it's kind of self-explanatory. It's a tragic, slow, tragic movement that I choose to end the piece with. And if you want to hear the entire piece, you can go on YouTube and hear all 5 movements if you'd like.
Well, let's hear it now.
Yeah.
Jeering Song. Patty cake. Elegy. I'm sorry, we have an emergency, which is there's a lady in our church I've known for 70 years. She's actually dying right now, and she would like to hear a recording of me, which I have a song singing, I stood at Calvary. So what I'm going to ask of you guys, could you just stay on? I should be back on in about 15 minutes. Could you talk? I think you're capable of that, okay? And I won't be on part of the program right now. Okay? See if I can do that even, I'm not sure.
Can I share my screen and then maybe we can just finish the
Yeah.
song with my player?
Please go
All
ahead.
right, a second.
And I have to enable that to happen. That's multiple participants can share simultaneously.
All right, I'm going to start at minute number 3.
I would like to request you start at the beginning again. It's the last piece so far is the most engaging of them all. And I think it's important to hear the whole thing.
All right.
Could I sign off? Is that possible? And you can still continue to meet, right? Is that right, Walter?
You have to
I know.
transfer the hosting to Elliot.
Okay, sharing the screen isn't enough. Okay.
I believe if you go to participants, you can make Elliot the host, or at least a co-host, in which case it gives him control.
Okay, well, I see I have Elliot's name on the list here.
There's probably an arrow pointing to the
yes,
right.
yes, hold on, please. Remove, report, allow, make host. Make host. Elliot,
Do that.
Here we go.
All right, I see I am a host now. Let's listen. Any thoughts?
You mentioned that there could be different settings of the reed quintet, and I think you've demonstrated this rather effectively with the elegy, and particularly with the idea of dark caressing sounds versus shrill and bright sounds that I think characterized jeering and your patty cake as opposed to your elegy. And if I'm not mistaken, the oboist became English horn player, and in the elegy, midway through, the clarinet switched to an E flat clarinet, which of course is renowned or possibly cursed for its very shrill sound. And so that was quite a contrast in timbre right there. So there is a certain flexibility to the reed quintet then. I think it was a stroke of genius to include the saxophone in such a group, because the saxophone is a frequent substitute for oboe when you get scoring and arranging projects together to be read and the oboist isn't to be found. And it works very well to hand the part off to a soprano sax. And yet the sax is also so intimately connected with the clarinet. And so it is an ensemble, I think, whose time has come. But the elegy is a particularly moving piece with the low tremolo registers of the clarinet and the English horn adding that wonderful sheen. It's also usually an expensive piece to write, meaning somebody has really been hurting in order to bring this music into the world. Are you able to share about the elegy?
I don't know. I can't remember much about writing it. I think though I saved it for the very end though. I was like, I'm gonna write everything first. I'm gonna have this really heavy movement at the end though, and I didn't really think about the heavy movement until I wrote the other stuff. And then when I got to the heavy movement, yeah, I think I tortured myself for a while, but then it all kind of came out one evening, or not in one evening, but it all just kind of wrote itself. And yeah, I guess I'm a kind of a tortured artist, so you know, I wasn't in a bad mood while I was writing it though. Yeah.
Well, on the other hand, you were certainly reflecting on the difficulties of life and of being an artist, often ignored, I think, by the mainstream. And what is this weird stuff about? But even this elegy is uplifting. We bring back all the dark material from the C minor opening, and in low registers, and you bring it back in a very comforting and uplifting way by raising the registers quite a bit and bringing us into A minor. And those major triads that you use interspersely that are not connected with the tonality, these chromatic medians, really are quite powerful, and they lend notes of hope to this elegy, as well as the part that is raised up to come back. So it's a very profound piece, Elliot.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was trying to put my finger on what's the emotional map of the piece, and it struck me as sad, sorrowful, and maybe just kind of resigned to the reality of that suffering. And so I'm curious, I mean, that's what I heard, but I'm curious how you would kind of describe the emotionality of the piece.
Yeah, sad, heavy, and contrasting with the first four movements, which are, a little bit. I wouldn't say that the first four movements are kind of fast and not very uplifting, not very comforting, but also kind of catchy. And then you have the end is kind of this very kind of dark, sincere, tortured, but comforting, like because there is this kind of resolution, whether even if it's bad, right? Like there's a resolution at the end, and yeah. So I mean, yeah, it's kind of a tragic piece that was kind of what I was going for.
And it's always interesting how in the creative process you sometimes you just get hit with a surge of inspiration and it just comes out.
Yeah. Yeah, I was kind of sitting at my computer for a month just waiting for it to come, and nothing was good was
Boom.
coming out. And then one day or one week, or I don't know. Yeah.
I'm interested if you can connect that to anything.
What do you mean?
Oh, just were there any triggering thoughts or experiences or anything that kind of
No,
where
I was triggered. I've been triggered all my life. There's nothing triggering. Although I do know what you're thinking. I know what you're talking about though. And there have been kind of experiences when I felt really sad or something bad has happened to me or a loved one, and I've been inspired to that negativity has inspired me to kind of really push toward writing, and I hear it in my head. But this piece was not like this. This piece I actually had to work to make it sound good. I wasn't really just. It wasn't like an acute, bad thing happened that kind of got me to write it.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for sharing.
I thought the jeering was very almost. I
Yep.
mean, and we've all ran into people that are like that, and sometimes we tend to be like that ourselves, and when we shouldn't, of course, because that is so contrary. But it's the whole sarcastic thing is so anti what we should be. But I thought you displayed it very well in that cheering session.
Yeah, what I thought about that I guess is that moment. I heard a lot of different influences, but we're all influenced. But I heard everything from tiny little bits of Shostakovich, Mahler, that high E flat was a little bit of Till Eulenspiegel, but there was also some Bullwinkle and Rocky in there, if you know that old cartoon. What else? Yeah, a little Poulenc here, but then, and I don't say that critically because we're all kind of, there's only 12 notes and 5,000, no, not 5,000 composers, 500,000 composers and 12 notes. So there's going to be a bit of overlap. But now, are the group of those Peabody students?
No, they're actually Florida State
Oh,
professionals. I guess they
yeah.
all met at Florida State.
Okay.
I think some of them are still at Florida State, but others have moved away. And one of them teaches at Lee University. I
So,
think one of them's at Yale now. I can't remember.
okay, so that was filmed in Florida?
No, it was filmed. It was filmed in Maryland. They were
Okay, it's good.
fortunate to come up here.
Yeah, you're fortunate he had good players on that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're really good.
Elliot, did you get any feedback from your ensemble as to the instrument switching, anything that made it work, or any challenges? I'm just interested from the point of view of how to actually do that effectively.
Yeah, I didn't really get any feedback. I just give it a couple measures of rest to give them enough time to put it down and pick it back up again, and maybe wet the reed a little bit. So yeah, I always try to give a little bit, but other than that, I don't think I really got any feedback. They do tell me when I write something that is impossible to play, which on a woodwind instrument there are some weird, awkward fingerings, and it's just easier for me to change it on my part than for them to practice a million years on there. So they do tell me things, and I'm not perfect, so.
Yeah, I noticed one or two of the players, they would switch mouthpieces or keep the same mouthpiece between instruments, but then others, they just completely switched out the whole unit. So they had different techniques for making that work.
Interesting.
How
It's
did you enlist them to start with? Were there some people you knew already, or?
It was a call for scores. I wrote a piece. They selected mine. It was just a 2-minute piece. They were actually, I guess they were. It was part of a program where they were doing 12 composers, and I was one of them. And then I just asked them after that, "Hey, would you like to continue working with me?" And they said yes.
They liked your piece.
I guess so. The first piece was actually electroacoustic. It was for reed quintet and electronics. So it had a recording of a cat purring, and so it's like them playing to it's cat purring. It's called All the Little Kittens, and you could probably find that online.
I just had a very unusual experience, of course. woman is literally dying, and she's 101, and her mind is in good shape, and she's leaving this world. And a number of years ago, I sang, and Shalane, my wife, did for her husband when he was about to leave also. So that's an unusual experience to during a listening room to break away for that. And Lord grant that Ethel, thank you that she will be in heaven because of Jesus, and be with her family and help them to just sense your presence and your joy. For this world is not where we stay. It doesn't end here, it starts here. And thank you, we remind ourselves of that reality, where we get caught up with other things, not to put too much value on them. And also that we also didn't get caught up with fear and death and sorrow and anger and all those terrible things that we fall into, which politicians try to take advantage of, but so do we all fall into that. So we want to not, now I'm not praying, I guess. Uh, now my view, I'm gonna, oh, this is a sentence I gave for the jeering song, or for all of them, is that this piece is not a political statement, but a statement on politics, which is a different thing, because politics itself is the dividing and the arguing. And we see that, and people take sides, and we get very emotional and angry, including me. And that doesn't, the wrath of man does not work the righteousness of God. So when we get angry and we're rioting, or rioting in our hearts, it really does harm to the human condition. Anyway.
May I add that the first two movements, the jeering song and the patty cake, were full of kind of divisive, contrasting themes. Patty cake is very episodic. You know, you're going. I can't remember the last time I watched Rocky and Bullwinkle, but I'm sure that it does sound like that. But it goes from idea to one idea. But the elegy is all one unitary. I guess there are different themes in it, but it's not really sonata form where you have two contrasting ideas. It's not this episodic form where you have stacked sections on top of one another, all competing with each other. The elegy is all so it's kind of yeah, it's I guess the message is kind of, like, let's get over these divisions. It's not just in politics too. I think just people in general, much more divisive now, and so I ended up with kind of a more unitary movement that
One of the
gets
things
mileage
that
out of with less, I think.
One of the things that struck me is that this was an elegy for William's sister in the Lord that he had to leave to minister to. And in that regard, I think it was absolutely perfect.
Yes.
Especially with the uplifting motion at the end of the elegy.
I think it reminds us of how important music is in all phases of our life.
Yes.
Yeah, I was struck by that as well.
Indeed,
Just
it does.
the timing of it. That Bill had to go off to do this while that movement was being played.
Mm-hmm.
Please extend our love and our prayers to your sister in the Lord, Bill.
Her daughter.
Her daughter.
That's a family I've known for 70 years. And when I was in high school, I didn't do this, but our pastor persuaded her brothers and the kids in the high school to join a youth choir and get the boys to do that. And our choir director, his name was Harold Ott, and he was pretty bald. And one day they were hitting him with jelly beans in the back of his head while this was going on. And there was Barry and Jeffrey, her brothers. So I've knew these guys since, and her Cindy I knew when she was born. That's a very long time ago. Anyway, Teacher's Tales, which there are two songs we're going to hear, four of them, which are The Food Chain, which is a very dramatic piece. And I might add that Elliot also writes his own texts. And a lot of composers do that. It's if you're able to express yourself in words, go for it, because actually you'll just want to do that. And then the last piece, I'm going to call it, use a very strong term. It is, I would consider it a short masterpiece. It is called A Delicate Dance. And it's Eliot's words are about a mother whose daughter is in inner city school. And by the way, Elliot and I, we didn't know each other at the time. I don't think Elliot was born at that time. No, he wasn't. But we both started teaching in East Harlem. That's where our careers began to make a living in the same area of New York. And
Wow.
but schools in no offense to Baltimore are really, I believe, largely a great mess, and things can be really bad. Elliot has gone from. Could you talk about that a minute? You were saying you used to be a not such a great teacher, and now you're in charge of the class, and they do what you tell them.
I had a textbook thrown at me when I first started. Yeah, it was very, very difficult. I had to really think hard about what to do to reach these kids, and there was a lot of failures, um, and I think it kind of got me out of my comfort zone a little bit, to kind of better, I guess, understand what it's like to be inside, someone who's not in my shoes, and I guess, I don't know, learn how to be patient with people, learn how to put others before you. Um, you
Ever
know,
learn?
there are lots of people who, suffering more than I am, and how to deal with what do you do when someone sees you as the enemy? How do you turn the other cheek and get them? And so I started out in Harlem. I taught in Fairfax County, Virginia, like a suburb of DC. After that, because it was just too difficult. I wasn't really up for the job at the time, so I taught there, and now I teach in Baltimore City, and I taught at a lot of different schools in Baltimore because I wanted to make sure that that I was at the right place. Because part of the problem with this school that I was at in New York was there's just a lot of, it wasn't the kids necessarily, like there was no copier. This was 2006, right? We didn't have a copier in the school. Like extreme, tragically underfunded. So so anyway, but so yeah, now I teach at Bard High School, early college. But I taught a lot of different places. I taught at some good schools. I taught at some bad schools. I taught in the prison for a little bit. That was also another very humbling experience. Like obviously there are people that belong in prison because they did really bad things, but that whole experience of teaching in prison was also very sad. I'd go home at night and I'd think, oh, I'm so grateful to be sleeping in a bed. So these kind of experiences as being a teacher, really kind of humbles you, and I don't want to say it makes you into a better person, but it forces you to kind of consider other people's situations, I guess, and know that you can have an impact. You can be part of the solution.
You're
And I taught
reminding
at
me.
Baltimore, but there's a lot of there's a lot of parts around the country that there's a lot of parts of rural America that have these same issues as New York and Baltimore. So I don't want to, there's a lot of sad stuff going on out there.
And then there's a lot of other stuff with, well, because I also worked in a very affluent school the Rockefeller family went to, and we had a whole range of kids, from kids on welfare all the way to very wealthy people from different races. But there are a lot of parents that are very aggressive in wanting their kid to get ahead and get to Harvard and do all those things. And sometimes you can wonder which is worse, the way schools are in a ghetto, or where schools are in Scarsdale or someplace like that. Because there's a badness about that also, and an idea of ego that you're going to make it and you'll get number one in the class and either you'll get in political office or have a big practice as a lawyer or whatever, or maybe even a great practice as a composer. I'll be a famous one, and all of that is nonsense.
Yeah.
One thing, hopefully, is an encouragement. You might say something to one of the kids, and 35 years from now, they'll get it.
Mhm. Yep.
Yes,
And
lies
I
are
think,
changed.
like, getting older, it's like kids have said things to me that maybe 10 years, not 35 years old, but like, 10 years ago. And now it's, oh, okay, this is how I have to approach this situation. Okay, this is how the student feel. So I think age is probably been one of the biggest factors in I guess controlling the class, is just being older and knowing the game that's being played.
On
Yeah.
another, from a different perspective, I remember things I said to teachers when I was in high school that if I would have a chance, I would like to talk to that teacher again and change things. I mean, I still remember a couple of particular instances, things I said that now nearly 50 years later, I kind of regret.
Mhm.
That they
I-
said
Sorry?
that they said you regret.
No, things that I said to a teacher
I see. Oh, okay.
that, well, it happened the other way too, yeah. But yeah, there are wisecracks or whatever, or trying to be cute and clever or whatever that, well, for example, I said one thing to a teacher that I did not get along with. I did not know then that the teacher was dealing with cancer, was on medication.
Sure.
I know that now 50 years later.
You've learned those things. That's our common humanity that we all share. We all
What?
have those things.
Oh, well, one thing that kind of piggybacks off of you, and then I think we should probably listen to the music.
I think that would be good too. Yes.
Is that I feel the same way around, and one I had a you get students who've really been abused, and they have come up with ways of getting under your fingernails. Like, it's almost like they spend all night trying to and it really um goes for your jugular, and you really want to kind of quit and go to law school or something. But teaching in prison, it's like you have to have some sort of compassion, because a lot, my guess is that I've taught, I don't know, like 1,500 students in all now or something. Some of those are in prison now. Just the law of large numbers. Even the suburban kids, I'm sure some of them, one or two. And so you just have to feel some sort of compassion, even for those who drive you insane. Thank God it's a 4-day weekend. I can. But anyway, so I think, let's listen to it. So we'll listen to the first one. The food chain. This is actually more personal to me. It's about being bullied. Um,
Oh,
and it's the lyrics are kind of cynical. It's basically about how really there's no way you can escape bullying. Uh, and I kind of use these metaphors of animals and kind of describe, this is almost kind of not human nature, but it's almost like the laws of nature that cause this to happen, no matter what you are, who you are. It's very, I think, influenced the writing, the content is influenced by James Dickey, who also does a lot of kind of brutal animal stuff, and also wrote the film, the screenplay for Deliverance. So let me see here.
I can put it on. Also,
Okay.
I have control. Let me do that right now.
All
Not
right.
that I'm
I
not
also started. I recorded. I'm recording from my end right now as well. Just because you stopped recording when you left, so I don't know if you want me to stop recording now and then.
I did record as much as possible.
Okay.
Wouldn't hurt. Okay. Here we go. And we'll follow the one by and the singer, by the way, for these songs does a remarkably fine job. At least I think so.
When an animal is in distress, wounded you might say, it doesn't scream, it doesn't shout, it plays dead in a deep dark hole and waits for the enemy to go away. When a shark sees a perfect piece of meat, he may try to eat or pursue it, he may not. Why waste all that energy on a healthy BBC when you've got a bloody halibut just a sniff away? Maybe traveling in groups is the way to do it. Just don't fall to the bottom. You play a useful part at first, like staying at home and nursing the young. But when the lion comes, you're the weak one. But even the lion, top of the food chain, when surrounded by hyenas, cause it begs like a little kitty as they eat him alive, skin to burn and laugh. As humans do.
We're not here. Let me do this. A delicate dance, this is.
Daddy's not around. He's in jail. The school we were at before was about to fail. I wish your school could help my kid. All she needs is an education. God forbid. I wish your school could help my kid. A warming presence, someone who'll tell her that they care, so she feels that I have not abandoned her. So much, so much, so much, so much could be done, could be done. So much, so much, so much, so much could be done with such a little share. The teachers want my daughter in prison. Night she plots to make them live it. She's never done a single thing. She treats the room like a jungle gym. I started my life never meaning for this to happen. I dreamed of a day when a better world we live in. Please do not shame. Please don't believe me. I am no burden. I'm not bad. I am not deadbeat. I'm a nurse.
Talk about a closing line.
Keep composing, Elliot. That's what you're supposed to do. Not
Thank
the
you.
only.
Write more songs.
Sure.
those songs, I don't like it when people say, "Oh, that reminds me of Meyer beer." No one has ever
Oh,
said that, but the thought comes to mind. Both those songs, maybe even more the first one, reminds me of course of Ives. There's a lot of Ives kind of.
I love Ives.
Not Burl Ives, Charles.
Yeah.
Is that last song, did you actually know someone in that situation or similar situation that caused you to
It's
write the words?
it's probably based on a lot of different, people and a lot of different children. I think the common theme here and what makes the last line really work is um, the the lack of upward mobility that people have. And if you're poor, regardless of whether you're living in Harlem or rural West Virginia or wherever, you're only let's say, and you become a nurse. Let's say you go to college and you pull yourself out, and maybe you don't become like a Wall Street CEO or anything. You just become a nurse. Well, you could have a child, and well, you're one breath away of falling back in there, right? So maybe you'll be okay if you get a nurse, but your child may not, right? Whereas I think if you're rich, there are all sorts of wealthy families out there, and they have rich kids that do drugs and this and that, and they're rotten, and but they're okay. They're going to be okay, because there's kind of there's been this long tradition behind them where there's money in the family. They get a second chance. And I think the Amish people are another example of this. Where it's like everyone, I don't really know much about like how much money Amish people have, but there are all these jokes about, the Amish people, they have a lot of money, ha ha ha. And if that is true, it's because they save that money over time, over generations, over after generation after generation of just little bit, little bit, little bit, little bit. Like my my fifth great grandfather came here as an indentured servant, and like the first generation or two, it was kind of hard, but then generation after generation after generation, like the cycle of poverty was broken. But I think not everybody has that experience here in the United States, and even if you do have a chance to get out of poverty, there's no guarantee that the generation after you will stay. And I think that's becoming more true with younger generation as well. Like as a millennial, you wonder, am I going to stay? Am I going to be as rich as my parents? Or and will my children be as rich as I am, or is it, so anyway, that's what I have to say.
Do you have other songs besides these two?
Yeah, there are two other songs I've written. I wrote 3 songs called "Grief Never Leaves," which is kind of like a miniature Kindertotenlieder. So about dying and grieving and loss of death. And then Teacher Tales has 2 other songs, which I don't think we have time to listen to, but there are 2 other songs about teaching.
But you definitely have, you're good at dramatic music.
I guess so. If you say so, thank you.
You could write an opera.
I could, but I'd rather write orchestral music.
You should write whatever you want.
Yeah.
As long as it's not for Hawaiian guitar, it's all good.
Oh, I think Hawaiian guitar, oh,
I'm not joking.
the glissando and
I don't mean that. I don't. Well, it is getting to be that time of eternity again. I mean that time of day again. So we had a wonderful session today, and there are people here who could close us with a prayer. Next month, I've discovered. Oh! Look who's back. He's maybe going to say something. You're muted, David. Speak, David.
Yes, I I I wanted to come back briefly so I could give a little bit of feedback from what I experienced in this very enjoyable period of time. Elliot, thank you for excuse me. Thank you for sharing your talents with us. Um, I made a few notes here. I just wanted to very briefly give you my feedback on a few things. First of all, that Amish song cycle or mass, uh, I know I've heard that somewhere before. Did you do it, Bill, as a listening page one time, or
Did you go to our conference in June?
I may have seen the video from the conference.
Because it was one of the
I
Psalm
wasn't
23
able to
was
go
done
to the
there.
June conference, but was that done there?
Yep.
Okay, that's where I must have seen it. And I knew that it's unforgettable, really. You can't forget hearing something sung in Pennsylvania Dutch and really a grabbing style of music, which someone observed was very Copeland-esque in a sense. It has that Americana swing to it, or ambience, or whatever you want to call it. The I really liked all of the pieces. The jeering and the what is the name of the suite that the whole name of the suite that the jeering and the patty cake and so on was part of.
Heroes and villains.
Heroes and Villains. I'm going to look for the whole thing because you mentioned, I think, that the first movement was an electroacoustic work that you used a purring cat in.
No, that's a separate work. That was like my audition work sample that I gave them that helped them decide to let me write a much longer work. This piece is it's pure reed quintet. No
Oh, okay.
electronics.
Well, I would like to seek it out and hear the other two pieces in it. The Purring Cat particularly got my attention though because for my master's recital at IU, I also wrote an electroacoustic piece where a 5-movement suite called Cats, where one of it was for a string quartet, harpsichord, and tape of cat sounds, and one of the movements featured a purring cat, a recording of a purring cat in it. And so I would like to hear what another composer has done with that particular effect.
Mm-hmm.
So what is the name of that piece? Is it available?
All the little kittens.
It's called what?
All the little kittens.
Oh, is it on YouTube?
Yep. I don't think it's on. I can't remember. You just Google it. I'm sure you can find it. I can't remember if it's on my page, but it might be on the page of the Civitas Solis Quintet. Wait, let's see.
I'll look for it.
Yeah.
I love the very French insouciance style of the jeering and the well, actually the jeering I heard sort of a film noir quality in that, but the second movement, the patty cake, I heard the French insouciance of something like Ibert's La Trois Piece Brève or some work like that. And then I also absolutely loved the two songs that you presented recently. I thought those texts were very well written, and I thought that the setting of the text was extraordinarily fine, and the singer as well, as somebody noted. But those texts, I think Bill has disappeared, but I was going to suggest that it would be very interesting to hear what another composer would do with those same texts. And I think Bill would be the one, given some of the kinds of texts that he has used in pieces, he would be the perfect other composer to set those same texts. and they would be very different from your settings, but they would be very good.
Yeah.
So, Bill, this is being recorded, so you'll have a permanent reminder of my suggestion. So, at any rate, those are just a few thoughts that I had, and I'm sorry I wasn't able to give them in a more timely fashion because of needing to be horizontal through the program, but I really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
We can tell Bill now he's back.
You know, I heard the whole thing, yes.
You heard the whole thing,
I
okay.
actually had a revelation that it was going to be complimented or something, and the Holy Spirit led me to go into the wilderness of the bathroom for a minute.
I thought you were in a catatonic state.
Yes, perfect. Is David Katz? He's the guy who does the American Prize, right? Is that his name?
Who?
David Katz. Who does the American Prize?
I don't know anything about the American Prize.
Some of you do, or maybe none of
Yes,
you do.
it is David Katz.
Yeah. So obviously, any Katz pieces he would have no particular preference for or objection to, I'm sure. I'm glad I said that because somebody had to say it, and it was really stupid to say. Next month, I'm not sure who we're having or what we're having, but I do intend to, because I've had comments on this, that I need to give a quicker heads up of earlier in the month of what's going on, so that if people, say, gee, if you, because I've heard this, if you told me, I would have been there, but you didn't tell me. So that, and I very much appreciate how people like Jerry and Greg and Neil and Robert and David, and I suspect Rachel is going to keep doing that, but we'll check up on her in case she drops off. How you're very faithful in being here, and it is really important we encourage each other, and we're supposed to do that. That encouragement even could include saying, I don't think that worked well, in my opinion. And there's also the possibility that the opinion is also wrong. But we are much better at supporting each other, from what I've heard people say this, than, for example, at SCI conference or something, we have a lot more insecurity and unfriendliness that can happen. God's reaction to that is he wants to make people more and more like him. And the only one who can do that is him. We can't do it ourselves. We can try to, it don't work. We need the Holy Spirit. We need Jesus. So, David, could you close us with a prayer?
Did you ask me my
Oh,
hearing?
wait a minute. Actually, Rachel. Hello, Rachel. I just see you now. Hi. Rachel, did you hear the music?
Yeah.
Good.
I've had to be in and out a little bit, but
Sure.
yes.
Rachel, how would you like to close us with a prayer?
Sure.
Thank you.
Dear Lord, we come together from all parts of the world, the country, but united in our worship of you and our enjoyment of music and our desire to use the gifts and talents that you've given us to bring honor and glory to yourself. Thank you for the fellowship that we have together. Thank you for this time of meeting Elliot and getting to know his work a little bit. Just thank you for that. I pray for Bill's friend as you draw her home to you. I pray for peace and comfort for her and her family, and for Bill and his wife and others who care for her. And I pray for your help as we all go our separate ways. And just pray for your continued guidance, and just pray all this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Rachel. Thank you, Elliot, for sharing your music with us. And thank you, the rest of you, for sharing your camaraderie and observations about it. Okay? God bless you. Have a wonderful coming week. In Jesus' name, amen.